Alright, so I'm back. The prime rib roast is now in the oven, and now I can go talk about the spoilers of Sonic 3. So, yes, we've definitely already established that there are quite the deviations for Sonic 3 coming from the Sonic Adventure 2 storyline, right? So let's start off with Maria, because Maria is kind of like the driving reason of a lot of things. So Maria here doesn't have the disease, right? I forget what it was called in the storyline, but the disease is very reminiscent of like AIDS and stuff like that. It's some sort of terminal illness, and Maria gets it pretty bad on planet Earth, right? And one way they found to sort of mitigate or sort of circumvent those things was space, which is why Gerald and a bunch of scientists went up to space and had Maria sent to Space Colony Ark, or she went with them to Space Colony Ark. I kind of forget how the thing goes, but she went up there nonetheless. And over time, she was able to get around the side effects of the disease, and thanks to the low gravity. The low gravity apparently helps that, or whatever, or rather, the gravity accentuates the disease, and then having less of the gravity, um, you know, helps with that. And obviously, so Space Colony Arc is pretty much not a thing in the movie. And of course, with that, how Shadow got to Earth is also different, because Shadow was sent to Earth with the capsule and everything after, Maria puts him there like as an escape pod away from Gun, because Gun found the project to be too dangerous and stuff like that. So basically, Project Shadow happens. This was a means of, I guess, a weapon, but also a means of trying to find a cure for Maria via some sort of ultimate life form. They try to find some like regenerative life forms that have regenerative properties, try to replicate them, and hopefully take their regenerative abilities and give it to Maria somehow. Which is why we have BioLizard. BioLizard was a prototype of the ultimate life form, and reason why it's a lizard because it's derived from the salamander, and salamanders apparently have some sort of regenerative abilities. So they took that, or tried to take that, and make it into the ultimate life form, but were not successful for whatever reason, and so that was scrapped ultimately, but they kept it around. Then came the Black Arms, Black Doom more specifically, and made a deal, right? They wanted a weapon in exchange of offering their genetic material to help create what we know as Shadow, right? The life form, the ultimate life form known as Shadow. And then Shadow was born, and then Maria befriended him over time, and then saw him as a friend, and Shadow Maria was his only friend, along with Gerald and stuff like that. Gerald was kind of like was kind of like a father figure to Shadow, and then bonding time, all that stuff, including even the commander. I forget his name. I think it was like Albert or something, but anyway, the commander was a kid at the time, and he was like a little brother to Maria. Later on, the commander became part of the gun military, as that ranking, and then had his sort of subplot with Shadow seeking vengeance because he let Maria die, essentially, or whatever. But yes, anyway, so all that was omitted for now. And then Shadow instead was sent via meteor, right? So what does that mean for the Black Arms? I don't know, right? They'll probably rewrite their Black Arms a little bit, maybe they sent Shadow as like a seed of some kind to help prepare Earth for the Black Arms, right? Somehow. But instead, he became a friend of Maria and perhaps Gerald, and all that jazz. Maria here was just pretty much an ordinary girl who had her own little quirks in some ways. There are references in there, as I mentioned, with the roller skates, right? It's supposed to reference the fact that Maria was the one to pretty much design the skates for Shadow, like the rocket skates, or whatever you want to call them, the shoes. She was the one who actually designed them, and then was engineered eventually or manufactured or whatever by somebody else or whatever. But she was the one who came up with the concept, right? I guess because she liked to roller skate around at some point, and that kind of shows that the Robotniks, right? Even in Maria, right? The prestige of the Robotniks, of their genius, right? It carries on even in Maria. And so that was kind of a nice little reference there. And then they watched quite a bit of movies, which is why maybe Shadow here is a cinephile or whatever. What do you want to call it? A movie lover, a fan of movies and stuff like that. Because it was like one of his only forms of entertainment, and that was one of the only times he got to spend with Maria and such like that, besides watching the stars and all that. And then obviously, right, so this all takes place underground, the Earth, not outer space. And but the notes are kind of still the same, with Gunn still coming in, trying to seize Project Shadow for themselves. And then so Gerald and Maria were trying to take Shadow, or they're just trying to escape together away from Gunn, but Gunn had them surrounded, or they had them cornered, or whatever. They're about one of them was about to fire, but then the young Walters at the time, who was the captain of the squad, tried to stand them down, but one of them fires by accident. And that very officer or whatever fires by accident, and then the thing blew up, unfortunately. So that very officer fired by accident, and instead of hitting Maria directly, it hits like a barrel of like some sort of energy resource, blows up the place, and the explosion of itself kills Maria. But the shockwave kills Maria, rather than having been shot directly. So, and then Shadow was there to see Maria die, pretty much. So, that's a pretty big difference there. Whereas Shadow was sent via escape pod when Maria hit the lever or whatever, and then dies after. Succumbs to her the fatal wound or whatever. And then the obvious deviations later on, of course, is not Rouge being there, and then instead, it was probably either Gerald Robotnik, it was Gerald Robotnik who hacked the system and freed Shadow from suspended animation after being kept for 50 years. That's the same. So that takes place, and then of course the present time is 2024. So therefore the time of Project Shadow was around 1974. So now we have an actual date of when they happened and stuff like that. That's pretty neat. Yeah, so from there on, it starts to kind of get a little more, there's like more obvious deviations, but yeah. So yeah, Shadow escapes thanks to Gerald instead of like Dr. Eggman, I think. Also maybe Rouge. and then all the scenes with Amy and all that stuff, because Amy is missing, obviously, are gone. But instead, Shadow moves through Tokyo Bay and then heads into Shibuya, um, as opposed to something like San Francisco or something, because you know, Escape from the City or City Escape takes place in a more of a place that looks very reminiscent of San Francisco. So yeah, kind of funny. But yeah, they go so the fight takes place in Tokyo, where they meet Shadow. They do the line with like, hey Faker, all that stuff. Why do you look like me? That's all that stuff. Um, well, not exactly to the T, but it's kind of there. So they fight. Shadow can already do chaos control on his own, rather than having a emerald to do so, which that's also different. He never says the line. It's disappointing to not hear chaos control at all, by the way. Even throughout the film, even in the very last moment, he never says it. I don't think anyway. But yes, he can do it on his own. So his power scaling actually is quite a bit more. He's actually more powerful in the movie universe versus in the game universe, because of I would say because of that. He like easily overpowers everyone, of course. Sonic, Knuckles, Tails, of course, right? But especially Knuckles, yeah, it's beats him pretty bad, right? And then, unfortunately, during the escape part, no vengeance is mine, that or Radical Highway music that should have been the soundtrack for that part. I think it's like so obvious. Radical Highway should have been the soundtrack to play. Even like Shadow even rode on the bridge, right? So that should have been more of a reason to play Radical Highway. Unless I hope I'm like music deaf or something, and they did play it somehow or some way, you know. But um, it's yeah, I don't know. It's just funny that it's just there's so much obvious misses when it comes to the music. It's actually kind of baffling. They only play it a little bit, like I kind of mentioned. Um, but yeah, I did notice with Sonic, of course, when they jumped out of the chopper, with the line, right? Hey, no movie or food or whatever the hell that line was. Um, I'm out of here or whatever. That whole line was said, and which was during like the beginning of Sonic Adventure 2 ish, when Sonic was captured by Gun, and then he jumped out of the helicopter. Of course, Team Sonic has already become a thing, as opposed to Sonic Heroes. That's an obvious deviation, but it's fine. And they were already established as heroes by the government and everyone else, as opposed to like just not knowing who they are. I mean, in the games, they're really not known, right? Like they never been directly acknowledged. I think maybe in Sonic Forces, but other than that, um, yeah, not so much. The government doesn't really do a whole lot besides Gun. Um, that's kind of how it goes. But yeah, obviously in the movies, they're a lot more involved in some ways. Um, so yeah, so all that said, and then um, they go out and meet up with Dr. Eggman. They reluctantly make alliance to go find the person who's behind all this, hacking all the robots and stuff like that. Oh yeah, and then yeah, Commander Walters dies unexpectedly again with the explosions, right? The explosive shockwave, right? I guess it's the most PG thing you could do, I guess, to show death But yeah. And let me see. So they get to the abandoned base. They eventually meet up with Gerald. I love the segment with Knuckles, being afraid of ghosts. And he was watching Casper together with the boys, and he was scared. Oh yeah, and I did notice. I forgot to point this out in the review, the actual review, but it's a bit of a nitpick, and that doesn't really take away from the score. But they reused the like that sound effect quite a bit, like at least three times throughout the movie. I definitely kind of caught that quite a bit, which is funny, but yeah, it's very noticeable. I kind of wish from like a yelp, like a more girly yelp from Knuckles or Idris Elba rather. That would be really funny, but it is what it is, I guess. Um, yeah, so that segment was good because I think Knuckles is actually afraid of ghosts in the official profile. Pretty nice to see. And then Shadow uh, appears out of nowhere from the shadows, right? When Knuckles was like looking around, he's like, "No, I'm not afraid." Blah blah. And then Shadow just goes boo. So basically, imagine Keanu Reeves going boo at you. It's like, oh, whoa, right? Hey, I'd be afraid. And yeah, he kind of becomes like a slasher, right? During that moment, that's just pretty cool. It's kind of a cool little idea. Then eventually, Robotnik meets up with Gerald, right? And Gerald of himself is a deviation because he's supposed to be dead long after, right? He was executed. He was shot. Um, and then he was recorded, right? He had the famous tape or whatever broadcast was played during. I think it was either the Eclipse cannon firing or when right before the final battle. I think is when that footage plays and it gets broadcasted. But yes, he's supposed to be dead, but in the movie he's not. So we actually get to see Gerald interact with Ivo, which is really neat because Gerald was kind of not a good person throughout his life. It seems like he only had he picked his favorites and really stuck with them. Um, and of course, Maria was his whole world. And obviously, when Maria died, he started to go insane. Or rather, that was kind of like the final tipping point, right? Maybe he was always insane, but Maria was the only thing that kept him together. And he's now he went full insane and stuff like that. But I think for the most part he was relatively normal, and um, then after Maria's death he went insane, and maybe it had to do with Ivo's actual parents being very abrasive towards Gerald, and that's why he kind of like um, became an estranged grandfather to Ivo, because there is a reference somewhere that he he didn't like him or whatever. He favored Maria over Ivo, or perhaps Ivo was just jealous that Maria got more attention than himself, and Ivo, or not Ivo, excuse me, Gerald was didn't mean it or anything like that. We never know, I guess. So, anyways, that is referenced one way or the other in this movie. Again, pretty cool, and it definitely shows later on when Gerald sort of shows his no, not sort of, he did show his true colors. But the time they were together was pretty funny. Like the whole virtual thing, and then there was the stuff with Stone. Despite his loyalty to Dr. Eggman, he never got any praise or any direct praising. So he obviously had trouble, right, with how he felt for Dr. Eggman. especially when he was talking with Tails, right? Which was pretty cool. It was nice. Stone and Tails interacting together, and they have a relatively friendly relationship, right? Tails is the type that doesn't like get super like you know uh, angry or anything like that. He tries to be friendly to everyone, which is nice. So we got to get to know Stone a little more, um, and kind of repeats what was obvious already, that he wants to be the best sidekick slash best friend for Dr. Eggman, but Dr. Eggman constantly just drives him away because Dr. Eggman is not, he not normal, right? But for whatever reason, he still sticks around. Um, I'm not sure if that was expressed or ever revealed why Stone really stuck around for Dr. Eggman, other than maybe he admired him as a scientist or something. I don't know. But anyway, um, so there's that stuff going on, and then what was it? So they all got captured, and then that was kind of like where I got my excitement a little tainted a little bit because of the trailer. They like pretty much revealed how they got out. Um, yeah, so they have like these like portable black holes or whatever, micro like these mini black holes in balls, and just roll them and then just suck everything within like this mini mile radius. It's pretty cool. But that was kind of spoiled for me with the trailer. Unfortunately, I felt like that was spoiled. But so the whole plan, right, with the drones and everything, was to also not only lure Shadow in, I believe, but also to lure his grandson. So he had a pretty grand plan at hand. And then the whole process of getting together, all that stuff. There was a bit of a subplot I forgot to mention with the female commander or officer or whatever. Not a whole lot going on with her. She was kind of just there to cause a little abrasion. That's about it. That was probably the most forgettable character, unfortunately. But I just felt indifferent. Didn't hate her, but I felt very indifferent. And yeah, basically, she was kind of just there to do a couple things. So she did find the commander's body, right, Walter's, and then the only thing like that was left behind was just the picture of the boys, and then I don't know if it just looked funny, but it just it's like this really nice wholesome picture of the three, but then she's like, oh, they're the criminals or whatever, they're the ones who did it or whatever. They're the ones who are behind this to get the key card. And of course you need to have two key cards to activate the eclipse cannon, kind of like a nuclear missile. And of course I think, yeah, so they got one of the key cards from Sonic. They just grabbed it out of his whatever, after they chained him up and all that stuff. And then they were going after the other key card that was located in the other gun HQ in London, I think it was. Of course, Gerald knows because he worked for Gun for a long time. And then I think he was thrown into prison for 50 years or whatever, however long, or something like that. I think it turned out like he was like 100 something years old. It's kind of wild, especially when he's moving around like that. But anyway, maybe he took something to help live longer, and maybe the quill may have to do something with that, right? The quill of Shadow and even Sonic's quill may have a similar effect to Dr. Eggman in some ways. But anyway, so they go to the HQ, and along with that, of course, Sonic and his team follow. They get the help of Tom and Maddie, and they try to come up with a plan. And then there's that bit out of the trying to get into the building or HQ with Tom and Maddie infiltrating with the hologram little things from Tails. Tails is a very very smart kid, to the point where he can make holograms, which was hinted early in the movie with Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles racing, right? And then they used the holograms to distract Sonic because it was supposed to be a means to help set up for a surprise party for Sonic of his anniversary of being on Earth. So it's like a birthday slash welcome to Earth kind of party in some ways, yeah. But then, Gunn came in and interrupted the thing. So the holograms come into play again, but this time for disguising Tom and Maddie. Maddie disguised as her sister, and Tom disguised as the sister's husband. Who, yes, are kind of like the least liked characters because of Sonic 2. Now, if it was a separate thing somehow, like a spin-off or whatever it was, then I think it would have been fine. But I think Sonic 2 left a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths, including myself. So I'm just like, okay, all right, that's why Maddie's sister was on the poster, right, with the gun uniform, 3 stars and stuff like that. I thought it was really strange to just include her into the ranks of Gun just like that. Just because of her husband, right? Because her husband is a Gun agent. He's the actual member. That would have been really strange to somehow like to see that all happen, but it's the holograms. It's a disguise, right? So I guess it all makes sense in that perspective. See, if somehow the sister was a part of Gun, then it would have kind of worked a little better, because it's like, yeah, she knows people. Oh, she's like really good friends with like not Walters, but some high ranking Gun officer, right? The next high ranking officer, maybe the next commander, right? Who succeeded Walters shortly after his death. That would have made more sense of how they would be able to infiltrate HQ just like that. But instead, Maddie just makes an impression of her sister by just being like an angry black woman, and then somehow that scares the Gun agent to let them in, and then pretty much put the USB to hack the system, blah blah blah, right? Pretty much they infiltrated. There's the lasers, right? All that stuff. They had to infiltrate it because to deactivate the shield, right? That can fry everything. Hence why Sonic can't just enter the building, because they have security. So they put the ESB in eventually. They even make a little reference of like the 90s, blowing into the USB, and it worked. And then they were like, "Oh yeah, now look at us. We're cool. We're from the 90s, right? High five, yeah, that kind of thing." It's whatever, right, at this point. And then there's another USB. Of course, that belonged to the Eggmen, let's just call them, and but that will play a role later on. But meanwhile, the Eggmen were able to get in the building themselves somehow, with their own suits and such, with their own hologram technology, and then there was the lasers, and of course, the suits provided the protection from the lasers, but the face was not covered. So there's that obvious big plot hole of their faces not being covered, and then the lasers were clearly hitting their face, and then somehow didn't die, right? But I guess you could say like what do you call the suits provided the force field or something around their heads. I don't know. Just like how the building is provided with the protection, right? Whenever it's activated, so you could, I guess you could kind of make an excuse for that. That's my sort of headcanon anyway. But I thought it was just so funny. Like it's just so obviously goofy and dumb. But I don't know. I didn't like it still. It's just a bunch of silliness, bunch of time wasted when that could have been used to see Shadow, right? Oh yeah, in between Shadow, the Eggman, and Stone come up from the manhole, right? Because they were coming out from the crab, and uh, the Eggmen were infiltrating, and then Stone was kind of like there to watch Shadow or babysit him, to have like him as backup. And Stone was like, "Hey, I can make some guacamole if you want." And then Shadow kind of does the weird, I guess, infamous line. It could be infamous later on, but it was such a out of left field. He's just like, oh yeah. Well, first off, the context I guess is that yeah, Shadow wants revenge. He's like, I will have my revenge. That sort of thing. And then Gerald's like, "Don't worry, you'll have your revenge." Blah blah blah, all that stuff. And Stone does then Stone tells him the guac, the guacamole or guac. And then Shadow just randomly says, "Revenge guac" or something. I think that's the only thing he said. Like, there's nothing about like guacamole, revenge, guacamole, like revenge guac or something like, or like or something along the lines of like, "I'll have this guacamole, and then I'll have my revenge, revenge guac" or something. It doesn't. He just says it. He just says the line out of nowhere. It was just so strange to see that, but I guess that was just their way of trying to incorporate the humor into Shadow, right? Which I wouldn't mind, but it's such a weird way. That was such a weird thing. It's just, I don't know. No other words can describe it. I wished they did. If they're gonna do that, then I wished they would have done a little more with it. But anyways, while all that was happening, Shadow was in the base, or in the little crab ship thing, watching the soap opera that Ivo watches. It's like the Spanish opera, right? Which kind of plays a bit of a thing later on, kind of like a running gag. And then even Shadow was like, he's like into it, because I think he's potentially a cinephile thanks to Maria, because Maria and Shadow watch movies together. So it was like kind of like one of the only ways to get some sort of entertainment together. So him watching movies is a way to remember Maria, right? To be reminded of her. And so probably potentially kind of like going to be one of those like running gags with Shadow is that he likes to watch movies. Whereas, Knuckles likes, Doritos, and Sonic likes, I don't know, a lot of things like chili dogs or whatever, and such like that. Tails is kind of like the all-around kind of guy, so, he already likes things like gadgets and stuff like that. So we'll probably find something else for Tails to like or attach to from planet Earth, besides more gadgets. But anyway. So what was it? Yes. So you didn't even get to try the guac. It's kind of disappointing, but maybe Shadow, because he's like technically like an alien hedgehog, from the Black Arms. I'm just gonna assume that Black Arms are gonna be a thing. Based off of that, he doesn't eat. He doesn't need to eat. So maybe that's why. But a little disappointing nonetheless. So back to the HQ. Then we have we can talk about the dancing thing. It was stupid. It was just over the top, right? But they get through the lasers, and then they try to get to the key card, but there's a variable gravity security system that the female officer shows off. There's either a up gravity or down gravity, or more gravity, less gravity, right? Which kind of how it works. um, against Sonic, I believe, and both Eggman. And then everyone starts to jump in, including the gun officers, and then Tom and Maddie, and then even Tails and Knuckles tries. No, Tails gets caught in it, I believe, but not before like. Oh yeah, there's a subplot too. I forgot the subplot. So the subplot, there was Sonic being kind of like a solo, right? He likes to do things his way, but he forgets that he can like rely on his teammates and stuff like that, and they want to help, but Sonic just is so used to being alone that he does things himself. He likes to kind of just goes off, right? And that was kind of a problem throughout the movie. And first being trying to chase Shadow by himself, and then he tried to go through the force field on his own, but he was about to not make it, but then Tails helped out and threw Sonic into the thing, made it through. So yes, now Tails, yes, tried to go in as well, but then I believe he also was trapped with the gravity with everyone else. Then we had the the emergency breaking glass thing with Knuckles, right? That whole thing. He like busted through the roof and everything, I think. Um, and then unfortunately that or also got Tom killed, or Tom and Maddie and Tails killed, because I think it left a big hole, and then like the steel bars from the concrete was starting to get caught in the gravity, and then the steel bars were starting to pierce to the ground one by one, and that was kind of like the ticking time bomb sort of thing. Sonic then was able to overpower the gravity by spinning up in the ball. He does a spin dash, and then boom, breaks the concrete block or whatever, thus saving his friends, and I guess, well, his adoptive parents. Um, and then stuff happens, blah blah blah. Tom then, well, cause what you call, Ivo and the female officer then try to scramble for the key card. The female officer grabs it. She gets out, and then or was able to get out because the gravity is dead. Like I think Knuckles kills it with he breaks the remote or something, and that kills the gravity. And then the female officer makes her escape. What was it? Oh yeah, so Tom had an idea because he still had the hologram thing. He was able to change into Walters and get the card from the female officer. And I think that's pretty much it. That's all we get to see from her. No other scene with her. I think that's pretty much it. And then Tom was sneaking away with the card, but then Shadow finds him. Like, oh shit. Oh yeah, so I forgot to mention Tails. Before he entered the HQ, was able to get into the back door of his with his hacking skills, because the USB of Dr. Eggman was left in there. So that was kind of like a back door, and Tails was able to hack the not only the crab, but I think like somehow like the pipe or whatever, the water system from the HQ, I think it was, or something like that. He activated it and flushed out the crab and all that stuff. And then Shadow comes in. He was able to escape with his chaos control, of course, and then appears before Tom / Commander Walters. Shadow thought it was Commander Walters, right? Because he knew him from the past and hated him, right? Even though Walters tried to help out Shadow and the others, like he was the most sympathetic out of the gun people, but Shadow almost kills Tom in the process because he punched the fuck out of him, and Sonic catches him after, And Sonic was like, "What did you do?" or whatever. And then Shadow does the line. He's like, "What I had to," right? And that's where Sonic starts to feel the vengeance, right? Because in his eyes, Tom was dead or near death or whatever. After all that was done, and then the Eclipse Cannon is successfully launched, Sonic then feels the vengeance. He wants to get back at Shadow for what he did to Tom, and Tails tries to calm him down. Knuckles tries to kind of meet the middle ground, right, with Sonic. Like, okay, I'll let you do it because I trust you. It's part of the vow, right, that we trust each other, but we never to use the power, but to trust each other. So, kind of a loophole. So it's like, hey, I gotta do it, and then Knuckles is like, all right, you do what you gotta do, but you gotta get through the Guardian that I assigned to of the Master Emerald. And in this universe, the Master Emerald is a combination of the 7 Chaos Emeralds. So I guess it makes it a little easier to find stuff, right, for movie purposes. And lo and behold, of course, all the people to guard the Master Emerald, Knuckles chose Wade. Okay? Like, it's so dumb, but I know, like, there's a reason for that from the Knuckles spin-off. Like, okay. I wish it was somebody else. They could have made a new character or something, or just don't do it at all. But, yeah, so Wade was playing hockey with the Master Emerald. The fucking Master Emerald was at that police station. And then Sonic appears. He takes it. Wade's like, all right, I tried, And that was the only appearance of Wade, but I guess they had to incorporate him somewhere. But yeah, it's just, I hope he doesn't play a part as much anymore, because I don't know. So he gets the emerald. He turns super and heads to Shadow. All the while, Shadow's separate. And then Gerald and Ivo are in the ship, I believe. Stone is separate because Ivo called him off. He's like, yeah, I don't want you anymore or whatever. Probably for a reason. Maybe he wanted to protect him from any possible danger. Maybe he somehow knew the Eclipse Cannon will meet its end. I don't know, something. Anyway, but he told him to just screw off or whatever, and Stone got sad, and then so it was just the two, I believe. But then, oh no, it was Shadow, right? Shadow was in there, I think, and never mind, I'm sorry, because they go up and then they got the suits, right? The famous Dr. Eggman suits, even the white one for Gerald. That's really cool, right? It's like a really cool what if kind of thing. And then later on, Supersonic gets Shadow. There's a hole, big old hole. They already seal it off, but then yeah, Supersonic just tries to beat Shadow, but Shadow somehow absorbed the power, right, back on Earth, right? They're fighting back on Earth in that volcano setting, and then Shadow got the power as well. So there is Super Shadow and Supersonic fighting at it. Really, really cool. I love the like the Dragon Ball Z stuff. It's really sick. That was really cool. So pretty freaking epic, right? All the while, the Eclipse Cannon was charging up after Shadow was spinning around, and then the Vengeance fueled Shadow, right, with Maria, the memories of Maria. It brought him the pain, right, and he was driven like and then they were gonna fire off the cannon to, to seemingly just destroy a part of like a city or something or whatever, to fire it at a city to show them, hey, we're gonna take over the world or whatever. But we'll know later on, right? And then Shadow and Sonic are fighting. Meanwhile, somewhere, um, they well, the cannon was charging up, and then Gerald reveals his true colors. He wants to destroy all of humanity, destroy the entirety of Earth, and the blast radius will therefore destroy and take um, Robotnik along with take out all of humanity, including the Robotniks. Everybody within that radius will die. And I was like, wait a minute, that was your plan? Like, wait a minute, I thought we were gonna, take over the Earth, dominate, whatever, right? And then Gerald was like, nope, there's no use. This whole thing was a failed experiment. Humanity is a mistake. It has to be eliminated. That was his end game. And of course, after losing Maria, he lost everything. So therefore, everything should be just destroyed, like everything. And but I was like, hey, I'm here. Like, I'm your grandson. Like, hey, we can rule the world together. But Gerald then reveals his true colors about Ivo, and basically he played favorites and always picked Maria as his favorite, thus kind of justifying the whole orphanage thing, right? With Dr. Eggman. He never had his parents. His grandfather was never there for him to take care of him, right? Always focused on Maria for whatever reason. And thus, kind of like further creating what Dr. Eggman had become, right? And then and because Maria was now was gone, to him he had nothing left. So even though, yes, Ivo was still there, so yeah, it's like I don't know, it is up in the air of who Gerald really is, right? But we don't know the context behind his with Ivo's parents, right? Like, was Gerald, did Gerald not like his son? Did Gerald not like his daughter? Whatever it is, I don't know, right? The family history is complicated. Anyways, so that all happens. So they start fighting. Okay, and then all while I think Sonic, Supersonic, and Super Shadow are still fighting. Shadow pretty much like taunted Sonic. Oh, what happened to the whole friendship thing, right? What happened to your friends? You left them behind, blah blah blah, right? And then Sonic is like, no, screw you, boom, just punch him in the face, sends him to the moon, beats him up, whatever, overpowers him. He was gonna win, and then Shadow was like, do it, kill me, finish it, right? Finish me, right here. I'm right here, right here, But Sonic realizes what he was doing, what he was becoming, right? The path he has chosen. And he stops because he doesn't want to take that path. He realizes, and he thought about Tom with the choices, right? Earlier in the film. Then Shadow, he powers down. He just said, he calls off the fight, and Shadow was like, "What are you doing? Why didn't you finish me?" And then the whole he goes into the exposition about like revenge is bad, it's never ending, nobody wins, and it's really all about the love that you experience with your loved ones, not the pain, right? You have to let it go, but love is the more important thing than the pain, right, that it brings. Like, yeah, it is painful, but you should remember like what the times you've had with your loved ones, right? Very, very, very wholesome messaging, and very wholesome way to make Shadow come to peace and make amends with Sonic, right? And then they team up. They did the epic handshake thing, and then they both power up, and really really cool. And then the music, of course, blasts, right? Live and learn, boom, really cool, right? But only for a brief moment when they just fly. But when they actually fight, not so much, I think, right? It stinks. But Gerald sees that yes, Shadow has betrayed him. He only tried to use him, I guess. Whatever it is, maybe he just said it just because he wanted to hide his ego or whatever, or his actual feelings. I don't know. Anyway, he releases the gun robots from the game, which is really cool. The actual gun robots, they looked really sick, but they're only around for a brief time. They get destroyed. And of course, right? I was really hoping BioLizard would appear as like a robotic lizard. That would have been that would have been kind of cool. But no BioLizard in any way. No robotic or mecha BioLizard. Not nowhere. Unfortunately. Very I was disappointed. Yeah, it was a little. It was yeah. I was really hoping that would happen because it would then be an excuse to hear the song of supporting me or something like that. It would have been really, really, really nice to kind of tie up the whole the Shadow Saga, right? Or should I say maybe the Sonic Adventure 2 saga, whatever. That would have been really cool. But no BioLizard. I mean, I guess it makes sense with the story they're trying to tell. They're trying to keep it a little tight, right? A little more compact. And that's kind of why I kind of forgot to tie it up with the Sonic thing. So they wanted to tell the whole revenge is bad thing through Sonic. He is the one to kind of reason with Shadow instead of Amy, right? First off. And then at that point, Maria, doing the whole like Shadow, give humanity a chance, blah blah blah, that final words, right? Would have been kind of pointless then because it still it wouldn't add to the thing in the first place. Like it does take away a big part of Maria in a way, but it also it wouldn't change anything. Like Maria is still important to him no matter what, whether she had the disease or not, whether she says those lines or not. Maria is still important at least in some way to Shadow. So that whole bit, while unfortunate, it would have been cool to be incorporated. It would just add more time. It would just been a little more like just filler, because Sonic already kind of established it, right? So yeah. Though maybe I don't know. Maybe there'll be a time somewhere down the line where Maria did say that humanity is not perfect, but they deserve to have a second chance, right? Maybe she'll say it to Shadow before they made their escape, and then I don't know. Maybe in the explosion or after the explosion, maybe Maria did say something, but they didn't play it in this movie. They'll save it for the Black Arms stuff. Maybe then. And maybe then, speaking of which, maybe BioLizard will come in the Black Arm stuff. I know BioLizard has no means of like having the Riz or no charisma, no popularity or anything like that. It just felt like, I don't know, he was part of the story, or it was part of the story for Sonic Adventure 2. Anyway. Yeah. That also why they just omitted the whole I don't know, Black Arms DNA, whatever, incorporation to help, hopefully, with Maria's disease or something. They cut that out too. Alright, so anyways, big epic fight, right? Gerald and Robotnik are fighting. They got the arms now, right? They got the weapons. Gerald had the big fist. Dr. Eggman tried to call up for some defense, right? But instead, an actual fence popped up. pretty funny. All right, I'll give him that. Autocorrect. All right, um, current trends, all that stuff, right? Pop culture references. That one I'll give, right? And then eventually, I think Gerald overpowers him. He's about to open the hatch or whatever, and send Doctor Eggman plummeting down. Um, he Dr. Eggman was gonna say the line, and then Gerald was like, "Oh, were you gonna tell me that you love me?" And it's like, "Nope, I'm. If you're gonna be like that, I'm gonna tell you." And then I forgot. I actually forgot the line what he said. Unfortunately, maybe if he did say anything, but yes, because of the rings, right? The rings kind of it's like writer's convenience, but whatever. With the power of the rings, Tails and Knuckles appeared. They saved Dr. Eggman, and then Dr. Eggman knocks or I think all of them knock Gerald way out and to the all the way to the energy field that Shadow created with his energy to power the core. And all the while the weapon is still charging up, right? 10 minutes. And the what do you call? Gerald flies into the field and just it was so like ah so that was really funny. It was surprisingly like wow, they actually did that. That was really funny. Okay. And yeah, and then Dr. Eggman called it like a glorified bug zapper or something. That was really funny. Okay, so they try to get through. The Sonic and Shadow try to get through, but they're not gonna make it in time. Okay, there's too many robots, whatever. But now, not before the Chaos Spears. That was really sick. The Chaos Spear stuff was really sick. So okay, so the cannon was gonna fire, right? And Dr. Eggman and Tails together were like, okay, so if we can prevent it from firing, we'll just change the direction of it. And then they try to steer the thing away. Oh no, there's no power steering. Oh, And then in the process, though, the moon gets cut in half, or whatever. A big chunk of the moon gets cut from the laser. So the laser misses Earth. People were like, yeah, but then the core starts to melt down. It's overloaded. It's too much energy. And so Dr. Eggman and oh yeah, right. So the laser fires, and then Sonic and Shadow try to hold it like, oh, like hurry or whatever, and then they move the laser. And in the process, Sonic loses his consciousness. He's tired, and he starts to fall to the earth. And then basically, Shadow, instead of for some reason not, blipping to or Chaos controlling the Sonic or teleporting to Sonic, he decides to try to move the Eclipse Cannon away from Earth because the core is melting down. Therefore, it's gonna blow up, right? And then Dr. Eggman also just comes to terms, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna just do the right thing if I'm gonna die or whatever. Why conquer if I can't conquer Earth? Then at least I'll try to save it or whatever." And also he broadcasted his last words to Stone, like, "Hey, I'm sorry. I actually like you. You're my only friend," pretty much. And then he tried to slow down the core, but the core still blew up, and then along with Shadow and Dr. Eggman seemingly. So we'll see. It's kind of up in the air, right? Is Dr. Eggman dead? It makes sense because Jim Carrey's like out on his way out for acting, so he wants to retire. I think he's done enough as Dr. Eggman. I mean, what else could you do with more Dr. Eggman besides just more comedy bits at this point? I feel like, yeah, I mean, the story can go on with or without him is basically, right, the thing. Because there's plenty of other villains in the Sonic universe, and of course you can always make new ones. kind of like what they do in the comics, right? Is always incorporating the comic book characters into this universe too, especially with what they're hinting at the end. So that is the end for Dr. Eggman for now. Stone, then walks off. He's sad, whatever, right? We'll see about Stone. Will he continue to appear in these movies? We'll see. Will he be the next Dr. Eggman? I don't know. We'll see about that. Will he go back to Gun? I'm not. I don't think so. But I don't know. He'll probably be succeed. We'll see. We'll see. Succeed as the next Dr. Eggman. We'll see about that. But yes. So Shadow is gone, quote unquote. Dr. Eggman is gone. We'll see though. And then the last act, pretty much the very last act, is Sonic is, like he's falling to Earth. Tails tries to rescue him with the ring, but he also loses consciousness after Knuckles throws Tails. Right, teamwork, right? More teamwork stuff. That's pretty cool. Throws Tails, right? But then Knuckles once again comes into play. He's like the rear, right? He brings in the rear, flies, and then sees that, but they're both unconscious, and he throws the ring, and then they both crash safely onto Earth. And then Sonic wakes up. He's like, "Hey, I'm sorry. I know I was stupid to act on my own. I gotta work on that. You're my friends. You're my team, right? Like, this isn't just Team Sonic. This is we're the team, right?" So that's pretty much they hug it out. They hug it out like bros, and very wholesome, very, 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 very wholesome. And now they're back into the birthday surprise camp thing, or birthday surprise camp thing. And Tom is okay. He just has a broken arm or whatever, and he's trying to recover. Oh yeah, and I forgot there's a whole bit with the dog, right? The dog has subtitles now for some reason. Like the first one, the very early on in the movie was like, "You stole my humans, man!" Like, come on. But then, the dog is a dog, right? You like people like dogs, right? It's a given. And then, they had their little fun time. They go race again, right? And then that's how the movie wraps up. Mid-credit scene, I believe, Sonic goes too far. It's like dark, whatever. So he's like out. He's way out into the state of New York. Okay. He's like, oops, right? But then Metal Sonic, whoa, it's Metal Sonic. That was really cool. He was really well done. Love the design. They kept it the same pretty much, with the exception of the arms. Whatever little pieces that are different. But he has the arm cannon, which is, I think it's new, but whatever. He has an arm cannon, boom, tries to hit Sonic, but he's like, nah, nice try. But then turns out there's more Metal Sonics. Oh man, it's gonna be really sick, right? So I wonder if the first Metal Sonic is like the Metal Sonic, or he's just a part of the unit, right? And then there's Neo Metal Sonic out somewhere, right? He is the one plotting the next thing, right? And pretty much like is going to be the next villain, out somewhere, and those are his little drones or his minions. But just when you think goes over, you see the hammer, right? And of course, that is Amy. Amy makes an appearance with that hooded outfit, takes it off. You see her face, boom, black screen. But one important detail, right, about the hammer, man, it's like powered like a rocket. So they're trying to like kind of copy Thor. It's it's a nice little clever way to like kind of copy the coolness of Thor. Try to get in on the Marvel thing, right? People like Thor, so they're trying to make Amy like Thor, pretty much. I'm probably sure that they'll have her spin the hammer or something in the next movie or whatever. And yeah, that's pretty much it. There's nothing much else to say. I think Amy looks pretty decent. I think they'll change her face up just like what they did with Shadow previously. So yeah, I mean they're always constantly trying to change up the characters a little bit, like little tune-ups and stuff like that, as a way to show they're growing and just to further improve the CGI, right? Pretty nice though that yeah, Amy is now part of it. Now you have Sonic Boom, right? Pretty much. So awesome. I am definitely looking forward to it. Hopefully there'll be more characters than just Amy, right? Hopefully we see not only Metal Sonic but maybe Rouge perhaps somewhere. And somewhere like a hint of Team Chaotix. So but now the question serves like which are they gonna do? Like are they gonna do like the classic Sonic game storyline with Metal Sonic in it, or maybe they'll make their own original story, or kind of like a mishmash, like a melting pot almost of like Sonic Heroes and the older Sonic games or the comic book stuff. Excuse me, the comic book stuff. I don't know who the hell knows. Who the hell knows about what it's up next? It's pretty ambiguous at that point. They could do the Black Arms saga in a Shadow spin-off to get that out of the way, maybe. Perhaps. And then carry on with the movie, right? So that is pretty much it. The theories and all that stuff, and me going through the pretty much the whole story. Yeah, so again, yeah, so the Shadow stuff, obviously it is different, but I think they're still able to incorporate Black Arms somewhere. Shouldn't be too hard. And then stuff with Amy, right? They'll definitely, they've been trying to make Amy more useful and like more powerful. That way, yeah, I think they're trying to do away with the whole damsel in distress thing to make her a little more independent, rather than just being like, "Oh, save me, Sonic!" Oh, sort of like that. Which I'm all for. I mean, that's a pretty cool change for Amy, I think, as long as they do it right. As long as it's cool on the screen, I'm all for it. So that's pretty much it. Yeah. Though, any comments in the comment section below for any spoilers or theories or anything like that, leave it down below. And we'd love to read them. So that is it for me on Sonic 3. Still really like the movie, even after breaking it down. And I'm just happy that it is performing well in the box office. And in fact, I may try to go watch it again. We'll see. Maybe I may or may not refund that ticket, because originally I was gonna go watch it New Year's Eve actually, but then the opportunity struck when I was able to get off work earlier for Christmas Eve. So I was like, I should probably go sneak in some Sonic 3 if I can, because it was still like a week away from New Year's Eve pretty much, right? So I wanted to knock that out of the way, and glad I was able to. So, but anyways, thank you very much. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe, really helps out, and I do appreciate it. I know this was a pretty long video, but that's kind of the point with the spoiler review, being separate from the review, or spoiler talk away from the review of itself. So anyways, thank you very much. Hope you guys' Christmas was merry and happy, and hope you all have a happy new year. Going into 2025, it's gonna be something, definitely. So stuff to look forward to, I think, for Sonic, I believe. But till then, see you guys in the next one. Sean out.